Hello, Glen. Third time's the charm. So, I had some problems recording this before. Yeah, sure did. First time, got interrupted by a kid. Then it turned out that corrupted everything. Second time, I had my settings wrong. This is the third time, and every time I switch my Linux distribution on this computer. Not recording on my normal computer. Right now I'm running elementaryos. Ooh. Uses the Pantheon desktop. Alright. So, I was thinking, I've done reviews. I did the Cottonelle wipes. Oh man. Don't flush those things, for the love of crap. Don't flush them. Do not flush Cottonelle wipes or any other type of butt wipe. Do not do it. Just don't flush it. I don't care that they say that they're flushable. They are not flushable. Don't do it. Okay? Anyway, yeah, I've done a bunch of different reviews, and I've talked about Linux a couple of times, but you know what? I've not yet reviewed it, so here's a review for Glen. By me. Oh. There we go. Oh, ah. Elementary OS. It's going away. So, a little bit about me. Here's some distributions I've used. Starting at the beginning. This takes us back to a year I don't want to admit. So we start with Corel Linux. That was fun. I Googled. I didn't Google. There wasn't a Google. Oh dear. Look, I did a web search. Yeah. For Linux. And it's because I was on ICQ. Oh god, I'm so old. I was on ICQ and I hit the random button and I got this guy named Lemonizer. And he was telling me that he used Unix and that he thought that Linux was pretty good too. So I assume he was on some sort of a FreeBSD or something like that, but he might have actually been on Unix. Who knows? Maybe he had a Sun system sitting there. I don't know. But anyway, so this guy told me about Linux, and then I just looked it up, and the very first one that came up in the web search was Corel. So I downloaded over a 56K modem. It took about a week. Used the download manager to do it so that I wouldn't tie up the phone line the entire time. And he installed it, and it was great. It was new. It was interesting. I didn't know how everything worked. It was great. And that was before there were any type of tutorials or videos or anything. I just burned it to a CD and off to the races. But was it a CD? Yeah, it was a CD for that. Alright. And then, I tried some others. Slackware, Mandrake, Knoppix. Knoppix was the first one that was live CD that I found, at least. That was its big thing. That was its claim to fame. It was on a live CD. You put that in the drive, and you're off to the races. You don't have to install it. Then I tried Red Hat before there was RHEL. Yeah, before there was a Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I did Damn Small Linux, and that was so small. It was less than 50 megabytes, so it could burn to one of those business card CDs. And I burned it to those business card CDs, and I gave it up to friends, and I labeled it with Damn Small Linux, and one of my friends liked it so much, we all had to rent computers, laptop computers from the university, which was stupid. If there was any damage to it at the end of the year, we had to buy the computer, but we didn't get to keep it. The university kept it. Had to pay the full cost of the computer if there was any damage at all. It was so dumb. So he took his hard drive out and he put in the Damn Small Linux CD, and he used exclusively that all year long. So it was awesome. also use SUSE. SUSE? SUSE. SUSE? I think it's SUSE. Anyway, I used it, and it was free at the time, or the university had it, and I got it from the university. I don't remember. Either way, it was legal, and it was free to me. It's not anymore. OpenSUSE is free. That's a different beast. Gentoo, which I used on that 500 megahertz computer. Yeah, 500 megahertz single core, single processor. Yeah, floppy disk and everything. Sabayan, which is Gentoo, only it was pre-compiled. Yeah, Gentoo you have to compile from scratch. That takes a long time, folks. All the Glens out there know that. Then eventually I found Debian, and then Mandrake disappeared, and so did Connectiva, however you want to say it. And the community said, you know what, we're going to make Open Mandriva and blend the two together. And I used that for a while. And then Ubuntu was created. I don't mean I found Ubuntu. I mean Ubuntu was created. I tried it. I also tried Six, Slacks, Crunchbang, Puppy, which was so fun. You put it on a little CD and then you pop it in your drive and then it loads the entire thing to RAM it. And you can take the CD out, you can use it as a frisbee, use it, coaster, whatever you do with CDs. And then it just ran out of the RAM, and it was great. Then Linux Mint, that came out eventually. And then there's a few more here. I've used Arch, Manjaro, or Manjaro. I've used elementaryos, but I used it back in the day too. Fedora, Pop OS, OpenSUSE. Yeah, you see it's a different spot on the list. That's because it's different. Nobara, Artix. Artix is interesting because it's Arch without the systemd, and that's basically it. It's a protest distributions. Protest distributions oftentimes are just whatever, but Artix ends up being quite snappy. There's Garuda, MX Linux, Antix, which I consider putting on here. Bunsen Labs. Oh, I'm gonna put Bunsen Labs on here, aren't I? Oh, I sure am. I'm gonna use the crap out of Bunsen Labs on this thing. Endeavor OS, Vanilla OS, RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Oh, the scandals. Rhino. Oh, I should do Rhino on here. They use a modified XFCE, and that modified XFCE has its own special tiling feature and a whole bunch of stuff. But Rhino is a fun one. It's really special. There's Ultramarine, which is basically Fedora trying to be better than Fedora, but it fails in my opinion. Use whatever you want, but we're gonna continue here. CachyOS. Oh, CachyOS is Arch Linux, but with better optimized packages. So it uses the O3 optimizations and some other patches and whatnot. And they compile the kernel with that, and they compile a whole bunch of other stuff with that, and on certain systems it just runs so much better. So what I usually do is I usually add their repos to my Arch Linux, and I'll use that. Really great. Speaking of protest distros, we have Devuan, which is Debian without systemd. Yeah, I don't care with that stuff. I've used Rocky, which is RHEL without the RHEL. Yeah, and we all know that now. Calculate Linux, which is it's Gentoo, but it's already done for you, just like Red Core is Gentoo, but it's already done for you. Those are really solid distributions. And then of course you add new stuff, and when you add new stuff, it compiles it on the fly. But you get a base system to start with, and it's nice. Then there's Kali. Ugh. Yeah, I've recorded this 3 times, and not a single one of the times did I mean to say ugh, but I do every single time, because Kali users, not even Kali users are fine. Kali users are security people who go off and they're like, oh, is this file have a virus? And then they plug it into their Kali Linux and they run it into Kali Linux, and they're like, yeah, it has a virus. And they're like, oh, let's load up Kali Linux. And then they're, oh, we're going to do some netstat, we're going to do some TCP dumps, we're going to do some Wireshark. And, they use Kali Linux the way it's supposed to be. They boot into it, and then they get out. The ones these people, they install it on hardware, and then they come into the Linux groups, and they say, how do you change the desktop background? Okay, it has a desktop environment. I haven't used elementaryos in a long time, but you right-click on the background, change wallpaper or change background or something along those lines on every single desktop environment, except maybe LXQT, I'm not sure. So Kali users, that's how you change your wallpaper. Now you know. Get out of our groups. You don't belong. No, you don't. No, the real Kali users do, but you script kiddies who think you're gonna be Mr. Robot and hack the internet just because you got Kali Linux. Yeah, you're not special. You haven't done anything big. I did it 3 times tonight. Just different operating systems other than Kali. It's the exact same process. Oh. Alpine Linux. That one's interesting because it's small, it's lightweight. It's used for routers. But it doesn't have any of the GNU stuff, which is fun. Same with Void, which is not fun. Tried putting Void on this, but it wanted to use the good old MBR for a bootloader, and this particular computer can't use MBR for a bootloader. It's EFI only, so Void just simply wouldn't work on it. But Void's fine on another computer if it will install through EFI, or if it will work with MBR. It's fine. It's lightweight. By default, it doesn't have GNU stuff if you choose to not have GNU stuff. No. There's Tails. Shh, don't tell the French. Yeah, I am French. But I'm not in France, and I'm not speaking French. But don't tell them, because and maybe it was all of Europe, I can't remember exactly, but someone put out pamphlets saying that was about Kali. If your kid is using Kali, then they might be a hacker. No, if your kid is using Kali, then they might need some counseling, because they might think that they're a hacker, and they're not. No, if your kid is using Tails, you might have a problem. Tails is meant to be like, Knoppix, run entirely from live USB, except that it comes with a VPN and the Tor browser. That's always fun. I don't have any use for it. I was just demoing it. But otherwise, it's just Debian. And the whole thing is designed to anonymize you as much as possible and make you look as generic as you can be on the internet. And it's been designed for reporters and stuff like that, so that they don't get killed for their information. Yeah. Arco Linux, the guy who makes that, it's basically Arch Linux, but they've done a bunch of tutorials and whatnot to teach you how to use Arch, and Linux in general, because Arch isn't something super secret and special that the rest of Linux isn't. It's all basically the same, just how it's configured. Let's see, Peppermint. Peppermint is a lightweight one, and then Big Linux, which is not a lightweight one. It comes installed with the kitchen sink. It tries to cover every possible contingency. It is big, and it's actually very good. It has some optimizations in there. It comes with some stuff that other things don't come with. It's pretty good. Let's see, the Blend OS, which is one of the immutable ones, or Atomic. I don't know what we're calling them these days. And then I've tried Nitrix, which has an interesting desktop. I believe that they call it the Nitrix DE or something like that now. It used to be called Nomad, and I believe that it was based on KDE 4. For anyone out there who knows anything about Linux, they'll know that KDE 4 was not good. But I think that theirs was based on that. Anyway. Oh, and yeah, NixOS, of course. I've used that. I used that for a year or so. Was it a year? Let's see, I started in version 22.11. So that was released in November of 2022. And the last version that I used was 24.05. Oh. Year and a half. Reason I'm not using it right now is I kept running into these issues with the way that it builds things and linkers not working correctly, because it doesn't have the normal standard file system hierarchy there, and doesn't use the FHS. So there were issues, lots of issues. Plus, being immutable, it meant that a lot of things that tried to write to things that it couldn't write to. And so there was you got to make a build environment for this, but then the build environment wouldn't work even though you put in the correct packages for everything to work. And as a desktop or a server, it is fantastic. But I got annoyed with just a couple of the small little things, and I'll probably go back at some point. Uses up a lot of disk space. That's the only thing, uses up the disk space. So that's why it's not on this one right now, and why this one has become a rotating distro. Basically, whatever distro I think of, I put it on here. Try it out. Yeah, but NixOS, you program your configuration into a configuration file, and then you run a command, and it builds your entire system. And then if you swap out that file for someone else's file, you get their system. And it's like your system never existed, but it keeps a generation list, right? So if you want to reboot back into your system how you had it, you can. So then you can just have multiple files, or you can use their system that they call flakes, and you can build different files based upon that. It's fantastic. It is mind-blowing, and I like it a lot, an awful lot. But I'm not using it right now. All right. Look, I don't know what I wrote here. I'm just going to read the top why so many, and then answer it. Look, the reason why so many is simple, dead simple. The reason why I try so many is when you're starting out with Linux, you get new ideas doing this, and you get to experience a bunch of different things and learn what you like. And then once you learn what you like, you can either you'll find something to stick with, or you can keep switching it up here and there, but you get more comfortable faster, I feel, when you're trying a whole bunch of different things. Plus, we're talking about a long time of trying different things. Um, Stuff just adds up after a while. Yeah, I recommend that everyone who's starting out try different things until you find what you like. We're going to talk about the desktop experience. There's different desktops. Desktops being not like the wooden surface that you have a computer sitting on, or plastic surface, or glass surface, or metal surface, or aerogel surface, or whatever it's made out of. The desktop is, of course, what you see here, with the dock there and the panel up at the top and all that stuff, and you say, oh, I want to run something, so you click the button to run it. That's a desktop. And there's a difference between that and the window manager. The window manager decides where to put the windows that you open, where to put the windows of the software that you open. The desktop is the desktop. So I'm just going to go over the different desktop environments quickly here. We have KDE Plasma, which is kind of a little bit like an old Windows where it was still useful. It has a lot of different options, and it's not afraid to show them to you. You get a lot of different configurability out of it, and it's really useful out of the box too. So it's a really good, solid system. Then there's the polar opposite, GNOME. There's not a lot of options, and they don't give you many options to play with. If you want to tweak your options, there are programs like GNOME Tweaks, and there are extensions that you have to install to enable new things. And if you get really brave, you can go into something like Deconfeditor and change some of the values about your system there. But that's getting real deep into things. You can also change G settings in the terminal if you wanted to, but they don't let you see the options necessarily. Oop, wrong button. Let's see, XFCE. XFCE is a good little one. The mascot is a mouse, like a squeak squeak, I eat the cheese mouse. You know, gotta run away from Tom. Is Jerry the cat or the mouse? I've never actually seen it. XFCE. Lightweight, works on just about everything. It's great stuff. Cinnamon, made by the Linux Mint team. But by the way, the screenshot here is from Ubuntu Cinnamon, because I couldn't find a screenshot of Cinnamon from the Linux Mint team on the Cinnamon site. I couldn't find a screenshot of the desktop environment on the Linux Mint Cinnamon site. It should be the first thing that's shoved in your face when you go to their site. It's not. Oh, it's kind of like an old useful Windows, but with fewer features than KDE. It's fine. It's not my thing, but it's fine. It uses a lot of the GNOME stuff to pull off. Excuse me. Uses a lot of the GNOME stuff to pull off what it does. All right, then we have Budgie, which is very, very similar to Cinnamon. Uses a lot of the GNOME stuff. You see, all this kind of stuff came about back in the day when we were switching versions from 2 to 3 in GNOME, and a lot of people really hated version 3 of GNOME. So they just said, we're not going to do that, we're going to do this other thing. And I believe that Budgie was made by some of the people at the Solus team, or at least Solus latched onto Budgie really heavily at first, and then Solus disappeared, and then Budgie kind of continued, and then Solus came back. Mate is another one of the ones that arose from the transition from GNOME version 2 to version 3. In fact, Mate is effectively GNOME 2. I used it earlier today, Still works. Still works exactly the same. And I don't want to use it anymore, I've decided. It was good to try it out again. Pantheon. This is Pantheon. It's designed to look like Mac OS. It's designed to work kind of like Mac OS. It has weird stuff in it though, as you can see here. For some reason the software store has paid apps. That's unusual to have paid apps on a distribution. Now granted, I am using elementaryos. If you install Pantheon on something else, excuse me, it's not going to look right. It's not going to look the same as it does on Elementary. Elementary does something special and they make it really nice. You can install it on other things though. Yeah. LSQT, incredibly lightweight, great for low-powered systems. This is a low-powered system. It could really do with some of that. Let's just make sure we're still recording. Hey, yeah. It could really do with some of that lightweight stuff, but I'm not going to do it. Deepin is, I believe, a Chinese desktop environment made for the Deepin, made for the Deepin distribution of Linux, and you know, I have this feeling that the desktop environment or your window manager or whatever should just kind of disappear, into the background and not really bother you. Like your top panel, as you see up here, with applications, the date and time, and then your system tray notifications. That's fine, but really it shouldn't be anything more than that, in my opinion, because it should just kind of get out of your way, And Deepin has a lot of flash and features that it doesn't need. Now, speaking about flash and features, we have Enlightenment. It was a window manager, and it's a little bit weird because it's a window manager that got so much stuff in it that it kind of became a desktop environment. Once again, window managers are just supposed to manage where your windows go, whereas desktop environments give you a whole bunch of other stuff like panels and bars and settings and stuff like that. Enlightenment is nice, though. It is very nice. I'm thinking of installing Bodhi Linux just to get Enlightenment again. Oh, wrong button. Unity. Yeah, back when GNOME 2 turned into GNOME 3, and then we got a billion desktop environments out of it. Yeah, Unity was Ubuntu's solution. And then Ubuntu decided, hey, we're going to put some Amazon ads into this here panel that we made. And we're going to put it in your search features. Amazon ads, and we're going to do that. Yeah. And it's going to build profiles on you and make recommendations. And guess who didn't like that? Yeah, that's right. Linux users didn't like that. So a lot of people did a mass migration away from Ubuntu. Really boosted the popularity of everything else. And Ubuntu hasn't been trusted since. However, Unity did get rid of the Amazon crap, and Ubuntu eventually got rid of Unity. They decided to go with full GNOME 3, and then they modified it. And you know what's fun about them modifying it? They ended up changing all of GNOME. So, this is a poorly formatted slide here. So the desktop experience, each one of these gives you a different kind of feel to your desktop. Something that's kind of ephemeral and human, because all you're basically doing is opening up the software that you want to use. You want to use your word processor. You open up your word processor right there. There you go. You're done. You get your word processor. It doesn't matter anything else that's going on the desktop because you came in to use that word processor. but there is a feel to each one of these, and that feeling and the way that it works is it can be personal and make or break the desktop environment for you. Personally, I use the Hyperland window manager, which is actually a compositor, because if you go into the background a little bit, there's also these two competing technologies, X11, which is 50 years old or so, and then you have no, X11 itself is not 50 years old, but the whole project is. And then the team who was working on that split off and started working on Wayland, and they basically said Wayland is the future. And so now a lot of stuff is coming up with Wayland, and Wayland has a whole lot of features to it, and it's really nice in a lot of ways. And I like a lot of Wayland stuff. I like a lot of X11 stuff. But yeah, I used the one called Hyperland. I've used Awesome. I've used DWM. I've used a bunch of different window managers over the years. When I'm trying out new systems, I'll oftentimes try out TWM, which is Ted's window manager, and it's very lightweight, very basic. Actually, it's not that lightweight, but it is very basic. So yeah, I'm not going to show those off here because, but what's nice about that is, when you open up a window here, it's floating, right? It's floating, floats around. You put it where you want it and it goes there, right? When you open up a window in a tiling window manager, it will, let's see if we have Edge, it'll open up, well, first it'll open up full screen, and then when you have a new one, it'll move this one over here, and the other one will be in that empty space where you see the mountains there, right? And it'll do that for you automatically and just kind of keep things neat and tidy, at least the way that I have it set up. Software is what makes or breaks a computer. If you don't have the software that you need, you're not using your computer. That's the whole reason to use a computer, is the software. Let's not forget about it. So Linux has a lot of software. A lot of people say that, oh, Linux doesn't have any software. No, you're wrong. It has a lot of software. It's whether or not you like that software and whether or not you want to use it that is different. It has an awful lot of open source software. Open source meaning the source code, you can take it, you can compile it, and then you can give it away or sell it completely unchanged under your own name, along with a few other rules, like you have to be able to give away the source code and whatnot. And it's interesting how open source works, but oftentimes it means that, most of the time it means that it's free, as in free cost, but it also usually means that it's free, as in you're free to do whatever you want with it, which is really nice. It means that usually there's not viruses and bugs built in because there are people who are looking at it. So, recommended software. For a browser, I recommend Firefox. It's still, in my opinion, the best that we have on any operating system. That's personal opinion. If you want to use Chrome, you can. If you want to use Chromium, you can. Vivaldi, sure. Arc, sure. Edge, yeah, you can use that. It's on Linux too. For videos, I use VLC and MPV for different scenarios. And for music, I use VLC and MPV for different scenarios because usually I'm not playing music on my computer. But there's also Rhythmbox and a bunch of other things like that. They're just designed to play music. For games, there's Steam and Heroic Launcher that I use a lot. There's also Lutris. Well, I shouldn't say that I use them a lot. I use them when I'm using games, which isn't very often anymore. Word processing. Look, there are really three that you should focus on. There was a time when I swore by ABI Word or Happy Word. but now it's LibreOffice, OnlyOffice, and WPS Office. And LibreOffice is based on OpenOffice, which was based on StarOffice, and StarOffice is from 1985. And some people say, "Wow, it really shows." No, look, LibreOffice is incredibly powerful and does an awful lot. OnlyOffice is like a scaled back of that, and it has slightly better compatibility with Microsoft documents. A lot of people, when they look at word processors, they say, "Well, how does it stack up against Microsoft Office?" But that's not the full reason to use a doc word processor is to work with docx files, right? Not the full reason. Sometimes you're making files for yourself. Sometimes, people are using something other. Why doesn't anyone say, "Hey, Microsoft, you have to become compatible with ODF and ODT and WPF or whatever the different file extensions are"? Everyone's just demanding that everyone else in the world conform to the Microsoft Office standard. Why? Because a bunch of businesses use it? Look, if businesses want people to be able to look at the documents, they should send PDFs. All right? That's what those things were designed for. Anyway, WPS Office is probably the most compatible with Microsoft Word. Image editing, I use GIMP a lot. I've used Krita a little bit. I use Boxy for my vector graphics. It's fun. And then there's Photopea, but I don't have a page description. For photo management, Shotwell and Digicam work well. Video editing, there's Kdenlive, which is what I'm going to be using. There's DaVinci Resolve, which is what I'm not going to be using. It works on Linux. That's as far as I'm going to say. Some people have said different things about how well it works. I don't know. Look it up. There's PTV or PITIVI, which I haven't used in a long time, since it came out. But then there's Reaper, which I tried using the other day. It's not designed for video, but it does do video. But it's not designed for video. For audio capture, I usually recommend Audacity. For audio editing, if you're doing professional stuff, I'll recommend Reaper. I can tell you right now, it's really good. It's really powerful. It does a lot. Or you can use Audacity. But the two things are made for two different workflows and two different projects. And why does it say most of this software is available on other operating systems? Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can try basically all of this, if not all, then most of this on Windows or Mac, or potentially Haiku. I don't know. Potentially FreeBSD. Probably FreeBSD for most of it. I'd be surprised if you couldn't get this on FreeBSD. Well, maybe Steam, but anyway. Overall rating. Let's wrap it up here. We've been recording for 39 minutes. Who's gonna watch this? Probably me later. Anyway, I'm not gonna go too deep with this review. I could go really in deep on basically every topic that I've talked about, so let's end it here. Here's the score. I give it a grand total of 8.5 out of 10 Glens. Now the reason that I gave it an 8.5 out of 10 Glens is I am physically counting Glens out there, all you Glens, okay? And for every 10 of you, 8.5 are going to really like Linux of some sort or another, and 1.5 are going to say, get this off my computer. I know you, Glen. You have said that to me before. You have said, get this off my computer before. You have complained about Ubuntu to me. You couldn't figure out how to connect it to the internet, Glenn. I know you couldn't. But guess what? It works incredibly well. And I really wish you would give it a try. It's basically designed for someone of your mindset. It really is. Anyway, that's my review. So, talk to you later, Glenn.